went back to the time of the old sun. Then everything which now lives on the earth dwelt on the sun. The beings were then quite differently formed, having only a physical body which was much less dense than it is now, and an etheric body. Man's whole way of life was plant-like. The beings lived in the light of the sun. Light came to them from the center of their own planet. They were totally different from present-day man. In comparison with present-day man, the sun man stood upside down, and the sun shone upon his head. Everything connected with reproduction developed freely on the other side. Man at that time stretched his legs, so to say, into the air. The plant has remained at this stage. Its roots are in the earth, and it stretches its organs of reproduction, stamens and pistil, into the air plant. This sun man developed in 7 different stages. His direction on the planet was the same as the growth of the plant on the earth. With the 3rd embodiment of the earth, he became a moon man. He bent over, the vertical becoming the horizontal animal. The tendency toward a spine developed. The symbol for this is the Tau. On the earth, he turns completely round. For this, the symbol is the cross. The symbolism of the cross depicts the development from the sun through the moon to the earth. On the earth, the symbol of the cross was attained by the addition of the upper vertical member above the T. This developed further in the bearing of the cross on the shoulders. The sun men, too, had attained a certain high development. There were also sun adepts who had progressed further than the other sun men. They passed over to the moon. There also they had the possibility of being on a higher level than the moon men, and they developed it to quite special heights. They were the forefathers of the earth men, but had hastened much further ahead. When now in the 2nd epoch of the 4th earth round, the Hyperboreans lived in their soft forms, these sons of the sun were in position to incarnate, and they formed a particularly beautiful race. They were the solar Pitris. Already in the Hyperborean epoch, they created for themselves an upright form, completely transforming the Hyperborean bodies. This the other human beings were unable to do. In the Hyperborean epoch, the solar Pitris became the beautiful Apollo men, who in the 2nd race had already attained the upright posture. In the old sun, everything was contained which was later extrapolated as moon and earth. All life and all warmth streamed up from the center of the sun. Then, in the next Manvantara, old moon, the following took place. Out of the darkness of Pralaya, the sun emerged. A part of the sun's substance had the urge to detach itself. At first, a kind of biscuit formation developed. Then, the one part severed itself completely, and the 2 bodies continued side by side as sun and old moon. The sun retained the possibility of emitting light and warmth. The old moon retained the power of reproduction. It was able to bring forth again the beings who had been on the sun, but they had to be dependent on the sun for light and warmth. Because the old moon itself possessed no light, the beings had to orient themselves toward the sun. All plants, therefore, completely reversed their position on old moon. The animals turned half round, and human beings also only turned halfway. But to compensate for this, they received on the moon the astral body, Kama, and thereby developed warmth from within outward. The Kama was at that time still an essentially warming force. This is why the human beings did not already then turn themselves completely toward the sun. Life was in the darkness. The old moon also circled round the sun, but not as our earth does today. The moon rotated around the sun in such a way that only one side was turned toward it. A moon day therefore lasted as long as a half year does today. Thus on the one side there was an intense heat, and on the other side an intense cold. On Old Moon, the predecessors of man again went through a certain normal development. But there were also moon adepts who hastened on in advance of the rest of mankind. At the end of the Old Moon evolution, these Pitri beings were much more advanced than the rest of humanity, just as the adepts are today. Now, for the first time, we reach the actual Earth evolution. In the next Pralaya, which followed the Moon evolution, the Moon fell back into the Sun. As one body, they went through Pralaya. When the Earth eventually emerged out of the darkness, the whole Sun mass was united with it. In that epoch, the first or Polarian race began. Then the previous Sun men, in accordance with conditions at that time, were able to form this specially favored species, the sons of the Sun, because the Sun was still united with the Earth. During the Hyperborean period, the whole again divided. One part severed itself, and the Earth emerged out of the Sun. It is at this point that the Kant-Laplace theory is relevant. The Earth was in a nebulous condition, coinciding with the Kant-Laplace theory. The outer appearance seemed like the rings around Saturn. Now the second, or Hyperborean race, evolved. Gradually the seeds of the Moon men appeared on the Earth, the Pitris in various degrees of perfection. They all still had the possibility of reproducing themselves through self-fertilization. A second severance followed. With the Moon, everything connected with self-reproduction departed from the Earth, so that there were now three bodies: Sun, Earth, Moon. Then the possibility of self-fertilization ceased. The Moon had drawn out what made this possible. Then the Moon was outside, and there were beings who were no longer able to reproduce themselves. Thus, in the Lemurian age, the two sexes originated. Such forms of evolution take their course only under the special guidance of higher beings, the Devas, in order to further evolution in a certain way. The leader of this whole progression is the God who in the Hebraic tradition is called Yahweh, Jehovah. He was a moon god. He possessed, in the highest sense of the word, the power that had developed on the moon, and accordingly, he endeavored to develop mankind further in this direction. In the earthly world, Yahweh represents that God who endows beings with the possibility of physical reproduction. Everything else, intellect, did not lie in the Yahweh intention. If Yahweh's intention alone had continued to develop, the human being would eventually have ceased to be able to reproduce himself, for the power of reproduction would have become exhausted. He would then only have been concerned with the creation of beautiful forms, for he was indifferent to what is inward, intellectual. Jehovah wished to produce beautifully formed human beings, like beautiful statues. His intention was that the power of reproduction should be continued until it had expended itself. He wanted to have a planet that only bore upon it beautiful but completely motionless forms. If the Earth had continued its evolution with the Moon within it, it would have developed into a completely rigid, frozen form. Jehovah would have immortalized his planet as a monument to his intention. This would doubtless have come about had not those adepts who had hastened beyond the Moon evolution now come forward. It was just at this time that they made their appearance. They had already developed on Old Moon the intelligence and spirit which we first developed on the Earth. They now took the rest of humanity into their charge and rescued them from the fate which otherwise would have befallen them. A new spark was kindled in the human astral body. Just at that time, they gave to the human astral body the impetus to develop beyond this critical point. Yahweh could now save the situation only by altering his manner of working. He created man and woman. What could no longer be contained in one sex was divided between the two sexes. Two streams now existed, that of Yahweh and that of the moon adepts. The interest of the moon adepts lay in spiritualizing mankind. Yahweh, however, wished to make of them beautiful statues. At that time, these two powers contested with one another. Thus, on the earth, we have to do with a force having the power of self-reproduction, Kriya Shakti. This power is only present on the earth today in the very highest mysteries. At that time, everyone possessed it. Through this power, man could reproduce himself. Then he became divided into two halves, with the result that two sexes came into being on the earth. Jehovah withdrew the entire power of self-reproduction from the earth and placed it in the moon, side by side with the earth. Through this arose the connection between the power of reproduction and the moon beings. Now we have human beings with a weakened power of reproduction, but not yet having the possibility of spiritualizing themselves. These were the predecessors of present-day man. The moon adepts came to them and said, "You must not follow Jehovah. He will not allow you to attain to knowledge, but you should attain it." That is the snake. The snake approached the woman because she had the power to produce offspring out of herself. Now Jehovah said, "Man has become like unto ourselves, and brings death into the world and everything connected with it." In quotes, Lucifer is the name given to the moon adepts. They are the bestowers of human intellectuality. This they gave to the astral and physical bodies. Had it been otherwise, the monads would not have been able to enter into them, and the earth would have become a planetary monument to Jehovah's greatness. By the intervention of the Luciferic principle, human independence and spirituality were saved. Then, so that man should not be completely spiritualized, Jehovah divided the self-reproduction process into two parts. What would have been lost, however, if Jehovah had continued his work alone, will reappear in the sixth root race, bracket, the root race following the post-Atlantean one, close bracket. When man will have become so spiritualized that he will regain Kriya Shakti, the creative power of reproduction. He will be in the position to bring forth his own kind. In this way, mankind was rescued from downfall. Through Jehovah's power, man carries within himself the possibility of rigidifying. When one observes the three lower bodies, we find that these bear within them the possibility of returning to the physical condition of the earth. The upper parts, Atma, Buddhi, Manas, were only able to enter into human beings because the influence of the snake was added. This gave man a new life and the power to remain with the earthly planet. Reproduction, however, became bisexual, and thereby birth and death entered into the world. Previously, this had not happened. When man, by working out of the spirit, transmutes the physical body, he conquers death. The separate forces exhaust themselves when they take on special forms. The force enters into the form with ever-increasing density, and hence life in the Lemurian age had to receive a new impulse, which was brought about by the turning around of the Earth globe. The axis of the Earth was gradually turned. Previously, there was a tropical climate at the North Pole. Later, through the turning around of the Earth's axis, the tropical climate came into the middle region. This change proceeded with comparative rapidity, but lasted, nevertheless, for perhaps 4 million years. Rudolf Steiner later revised his time scale of earthly evolution to much shorter periods. Editor, close bracket. 4 million years were needed by the moon Pithris in order to turn the axis of the Earth. At that time, the moon Pithris's development was already much further on than that of present-day man. Thus, at that time, the two sexes developed from the unisexual human being. In the beginning, among the unisexual human beings, there were very retarded individuals, but also those who were very far advanced. Only a small part of the earth was a fitting dwelling place for the descending monads. Then it was that human beings divided into two sexes. This had taken place earlier with the animals. Side by side with human beings, there existed male and female animals. Very grotesque forms were able to live on the quite differently constituted earth. They were also able to fly. They bore within them the future promise of what human beings possess today. Esoteric religions call human beings able to bring forth their own kind bulls. Certain animal symbols are related to this. The bull is a symbol of fertility. Previously came the lion, the symbol of courage. Before this, the eagle. In the vision of Ezekiel, referring to those earlier times, the animals have wings because they could raise themselves above the earth. Man only appeared later. Thus we have the human being as he evolved from the unisexual into the bisexual state, and together with him, bisexual animals, male and female. It was only through the lunar Pitris that man became mature enough to have a body capable of receiving the monads. These latter, however, selected only the most highly developed examples and evolved a noble human form. But they had to withdraw completely from intercourse with anything around them, otherwise their beautiful bodies would have been lost. It was only then that the body formed itself in accordance with the monad. The other forms, which were less advanced, failed to satisfy the descending monad. Hence, they poured only a part of their spiritual force into the imperfect human bodies, and the third stream utterly refused to incarnate. Because of this, there existed human bodies very weakly fructified by spirit, and also others quite devoid of it. In the middle of the Lemurian age, we find the first sons of fire mist. These incarnate in the fiery element, which at that time surrounded the earth. The sons of fire mist were the first arhats. Then there arose the other two kinds. In the first Lemurian human race, those who had received only a small spark were little adapted to forming a civilization, and soon went under. On the other hand, those who had received absolutely nothing found full expression for their lower nature. They mingled with the animals. From them proceeded the last Lemurian races. The wild animal instincts lived in wild animal-like human forms. This brought about a degeneration of the entire human substance. Had all human beings been fructified with monads, the whole human race would have greatly improved. The first evil arose through the fact that certain monads refused to incarnate. From this, through intermingling, deterioration set in. In this way, the human being suffered an essentially physical degradation. Only in the Atlantean age did the monads regret their previous refusal. They came down and populated all mankind. In this way arose the various Atlantean races. We have now reached a time when something happened to bring about the deterioration of the earth. The wholesale deterioration of the races brought this about. It was then that the seed of karma was planted. Everything that came later is the result of this original karma. For had the monads all entered into human forms at the right time, human beings would have possessed the certainty of animals. They could not have been subject to error, but they would not have been able to develop freedom. The original arhats could not go astray. They are angels in human form. The moon adepts, however, had so brought things about that certain monads waited before incarnating. Through this, the principle of asceticism entered into the world, reluctance to inhabit the earth. This discrepancy between higher and lower nature arose at this time. Because of it, man became uncertain. He must now try things out, oscillating from one experience to another in an attempt to find his way in the world. Because he had original karma, his own further karma came about. Now he could fall into error. The intention was that man should attain knowledge. This could only be brought about through the original karma. The Luciferic principle, the moon adepts, wanted to develop freedom and independence to an ever greater degree. This is very beautifully expressed in the saga of Prometheus. Zeus will not allow human beings to get fire. Prometheus, however, gives them fire, the faculty of developing ever higher and higher. By so doing, he condemns man to suffering. Man must now wait for the coming of a sun hero, until the principle of the sun hero in the sixth race will make him able to develop further without Luciferic knowledge. Those endowed with this higher degree of advancement are like Prometheus. They are sun heroes. We have thus learned to know a twofold order of human beings: those who succumbed to the Jehovah principle, the bringing of perfection to the physical earth, and also spiritual human beings, who were becoming more highly developed. Jehovah and Lucifer are engaged in an unceasing battle. It is the intention of Lucifer to develop everything upward, toward knowledge, toward the light. In Devachan, the human being can bring a certain degree of advancement to the Luciferic principle. The longer he remains in Devachan, the more of this can he develop. He must pass through as many incarnations as are necessary in order to bring this principle fully to perfection. Thus there exists in the world a Jehovah principle and a Lucifer principle. If the Jehovah principle alone were to be taught, man would succumb to the earth. If the teaching of reincarnation and karma were allowed to disappear entirely from the earth, we should win back for Jehovah all the monads, and physical man would be given over to the earth, to a petrified planet. If, however, one teaches reincarnation and karma, man is led upward to spiritualization. Christianity, therefore, made the absolutely right compromise, and for a period of time did not teach reincarnation and karma, but the importance of the single human existence instead, in order that man should learn to love the earth, waiting until he is mature enough for a new Christianity with the teaching of reincarnation and karma, which is the saving of the earth, and brings the whole of what has been sown into Devachan. As a result, in Christianity itself, there is conflict between the two principles, the one without reincarnation and karma, the other with this teaching. In the former case, everything which Lucifer could bring about would be taken from human beings. They would actually drop out of reincarnation and turn their backs on the earth, becoming degenerate angels. In that case, the earth would be going toward its downfall. Were the hosts of Jehovah to be victorious on the earth would remain behind as a kind of moon, as a rigidified body. The possibility of spiritualization would then be a missed opportunity. The battle in the Bhagavad Gita describes the conflict between Jehovah and Lucifer and their hosts. It might still be possible today for the teaching of Christianity without reincarnation and karma to prevail. Then the earth would be lost for the principle of Lucifer. The whole earth is still a battlefield of these two principles. The principle that leads the earth toward spirituality is Lucifer. In order to live in accordance with this principle, one must first love the earth. One must descend on to the earth. Lucifer is the prince who reigns in the kingdom of science and art. But he cannot descend altogether onto the earth. For this his power does not suffice. Quite alone, it would be impossible for Lucifer to lead upward what is on the earth. For this, not only is the power of a moon adept necessary, but of a sun adept, who embraces the universality of human life, not manifesting only in science and art. Lucifer is represented as the winged form of the dragon. Ezekiel describes him as the winged bull. Now there came a sun hero similar to those who appeared in the Hyperborean epoch, represented by Ezekiel as the winged lion. This hero who gave the second impulse is the Christ, the lion out of the tribe of Judah. The representative of the eagle will come only later. He represents the father principle. Christ is a solar hero, a lion nature, a sun Pitri. The third impulse will be represented by an adept who was already an adept on Saturn. Such a one cannot as yet incarnate on the earth. When man is not only able to develop his higher nature upward, but working creatively is able to renounce completely his lower nature, then will this highest adept, the Saturn adept, the Father Principle, the hidden God, be able to incarnate. The end of Lecture 23. You are listening to RudolfSteinerAudio.com. As well, you can hear these podcasts at rudolfsteiner.podbean.com. Please consider becoming a patron. There are two publishing houses, steinerbooks.org in America and rudolfsteinerpress.com in England, which are the sole publishers of Steiner into English and have given me permission to do these recordings. Please consider patronizing them as well. This is a reading of Collected Works Volume 93A by Rudolf Steiner. Participants' notes to 31 lectures given in around 1905, entitled Foundations of Esotericism, translated by Vera and Judith Compton Burnett. This is Lecture 24, given in Berlin on the 26th of October, 1905. We are now living in the fifth subrace of the fifth root race. This root race is usually called the Aryan race and includes, as the first subrace, the ancient Indian, which developed in the region of southern Asia. A primeval southern Asiatic population dwelt there long before the coming into being of the Vedas. Everything we have in the Vedas is a faint echo of that infinitely profound religious wisdom which was taught by the ancient rishis. Later we find in the Near East the ancient Persian race, which received its religious teaching and its culture from Zarathustra. The later Zarathustrian cultures in Asia are but echoes of this teaching. Then, as the third subrace, we find the Egyptian, Chaldean, Babylonian, Assyrian peoples, out of which the Semitic Jewish civilization gradually developed. There then arose the fourth subrace, the Greco-Roman civilization in southern Europe, which lasted until the ascent of the Germanic peoples in northern, central, and western Europe. Two further civilizations, subraces, are yet to follow. 7 subraces together form a root race. The preceding root race inhabited Atlantis, that part of the earth which later was flooded by the Atlantic Ocean. To this root race belong the following subraces. Firstly, the Romoals, secondly, the Tlavatlis, thirdly, the Toltecs, fourthly, the original Turanians, fifthly, the original Semites, sixthly, the Akkadians, seventhly, the Mongols. Still further back, we come to the continent of Lemuria, between Africa, Asia, and Australia. There we come into times with quite other conditions. Then we go still further back to the second root race, the Hyperborean, and to the first root race, the Polarian. So 2 further subraces and then 2 further root races are still to follow in the current globe, or condition of form, the physical. As we go back, we come to a human being composed of an ever finer and finer substance. At the beginning of its evolution, the earth consisted of fine etheric substance. At that time, all beings were also made up of such substance. At the end of its evolution, the earth will again consist of this fine etheric substance. Such conditions through which the earth passes, beginning with the finest etheric substance, then becoming densified and again returning to a condition of fine physical etheric substance, constitute a globe or condition of form. Thus the physical globe develops out of a still finer condition than that of the finest physical ether. The etheric develops out of the astral and returns to the astral. Parenthesis, refer to Lecture 10, close parenthesis. On the preceding globe, the astral, all beings were in an astral condition. The astral globe no longer floats somewhere or other in heavenly space, but the beings which were upon it densified, and the astral globe densified with them. Today, this globe is the earth itself. The transition from the astral globe to the physical globe is a transformation of condition. On the astral globe, also 7 successive conditions developed. One has become accustomed in theosophical literature to call these conditions races. Thus, there were 7 astral races. The astral globe also densified only gradually to astral substance. Earlier, the astral globe was still finer, and indeed consisted of substance out of which our thoughts are woven today. For this reason, it is called mental substance, and the globe a rupa mental globe. On this rupa mental globe, there existed 7 successive mental races of humanity, together with all that was connected with them. Preceding this, there was a still finer condition of development of even finer substance, the arupa mental globe. Arupa, because no actual forms existed, but everything was only indicated. These 4 states one calls globes. In reality, however, they are 4 successive forms of the earth. A further 3 globes are to follow in this round, the mineral round, to complete the round. Parenthesis refer to the adjacent diagram showing the 7 globes making up the mineral round. Close parenthesis. There are 7 rounds, of which the mineral round is the 4th. Now let us follow the course of the physical earth until it reaches the end of its evolution. It again passes over into an astral earth, then into an etheric earth. On the previous astral earth, the beings were still indeterminate, receiving their form from forces outside themselves. When the human being is again on an astral earth, he will be able to give himself his own form. On the previous astral earth, Jehovah and his hosts had given man his form. On the plastic astral earth, however, man will give himself his form out of his inner force. Hence, this is called the plastic, in quotes, globe. And in this respect, the following globes, rupa and an arupa globe, will have similar conditions. Man must refine himself so completely that finally he will only be like a seed in a germinal condition, containing everything which he has absorbed into himself. All experiences are then within him, as though concentrated in a point as force. The seeds that were present on the first globe did not yet contain this. On the last globe, however, the seeds contain everything that they experienced on the different globes. Between the single material stages of these globes, there is no gradual differentiation, but a somewhat abrupt process. Just as one can take salt, dissolve it in water, and let it crystallize again, so a globe comes into a sleeping condition, pralaya, and out of this emerges the following globe. Between 2 waking conditions, the globes go through a short sleeping condition. When man arrives at the last, 7th stage, he goes through a longer sleeping condition. He's enriched and can again proceed on his way at a higher stage. For this reason, he must first go through a longer pralaya. This longer pralaya is, however, not an undifferentiated, uniform sleep condition, but very differentiated. When someone has developed occult faculties so far that he sleeps consciously in dreamless sleep, he has developed a devaconic consciousness. This enables him to follow what takes place between death and a new birth. This consciousness can be enhanced. Then he has the faculty of observing what takes place between the globes. As a 3rd stage of consciousness, he becomes able to observe what goes on between the rounds. This 3rd condition, therefore, corresponds to a consciousness between 2 rounds. To be able to observe what takes place between 2 earth lives is the 1st degree of higher consciousness, between 2 globes the 2nd, and between 2 rounds the 3rd degree. Conscious sleep is of a quite different nature, which leads to this awareness. Between the last round of a planetary condition and the first of the one which follows, 5 further conditions lie on the other side of consciousness. The 7 rounds and the 5 conditions of pralaya are together called the 12 stages of the cosmic year. Then the whole thing is gone through again, but at a higher stage. We are now in the fourth round of the earth, and 3 others preceded it. Before the seed of man, as he is today, was there, the human being was already 3 times present in a seed-like condition, once in every round. In each round we have 7 stages of development, which are called globes, and again 7 stages on every globe, which are called root races. 7 rounds together make up a planetary condition or evolution. The first round began with an arupa condition and densified to the earth. 4 times already has our earth become physical. 3 times will it become so again. Every such densification and dissolution belongs to a round. 7 such rounds are called a planetary system or evolution. When the first earth round emerged, everything that had descended from what had developed on Old Moon was present in germinal form. Between the last moon round and the first earth round, there was a long pralaya condition. At that time, the moon men were the human forefathers, standing, according to their lower nature, between present-day man and present-day animals. Present-day animals are moon men descended to a lower level, and human beings are moon men who have ascended higher. But on Old Moon, the plants too are different from those of today. The plant kingdom stood between the present mineral and plant kingdoms, similar to a peat bog that is half mineral and half plant. Old Moon was actually a great plant. Its ground consisted of intertwined plants. At that time, rocks did not exist. The plant-like mineral kingdom first densified on the earth to the present mineral kingdom. Our present quartz, malachite, and so on have consolidated out of the moon plants. The dolomites have arisen out of primeval plants. Thus on Moon there was a kingdom lying between the mineral and the plant. In this was rooted the moon vegetation. It needed the moon ground. The kinds of vegetation that on the earth have not found a connection with the soil have become parasitic. They must still always grow on plants. For example, the mistletoe. This grows on plants, just as on Old Moon all vegetation grew on a half plant-like foundation. Loki, the moon god, killed Baldur with mistletoe, the moon plant. So, we find on Old Moon a kingdom between the mineral and plant kingdoms, a kingdom between the plant and animal kingdoms, a kingdom between the animal and human kingdoms. These were the seeds which came over to the earth. During the first earth round, the human kingdom gradually separated itself off. Man became more human, the animal more animal. The external body of man became slowly more human. During the second round, the animal kingdom separated itself off. During the third, the plant kingdom. During the fourth, the mineral kingdom. Then man made a further ascent. The first 3 rounds were repetitions of earlier conditions and a preparation in order in the 4th round in the Lemurian race to take up something new. Now man works upon the mineral kingdom. A time will come when, as the product of his activity, he will have worked over and transformed the mineral kingdom, so that no particle will then remain whose nature has not been changed by the artifice of man. Then the whole can be transmuted into pure astral forms. That is the redemption of a kingdom. In the 4th round, man will have redeemed the mineral kingdom, when he will have transformed it by his work upon it. Then everything goes into pralaya. No mineral kingdom will be there, but the whole earth will have become a plant. Man will then have been raised half a stage higher, and everything else with him. For example, in the 5th round, Köln Cathedral will grow as a plant. One is not working in vain when one gives form to the mineral kingdom. Köln Cathedral will eventually grow as plant world out of what will then be the ground. In the atmosphere of the fifth round, we will find in living cloud formations everything which today has been painted. There we have to do with the repetition at a higher stage, where all our work in the mineral world around us grows. In the fifth round, we redeem the plant world. In the sixth, the animal. And in the seventh round, the human kingdom. Then man will be mature enough to tread a new planet. In order that he might develop upward, the other kingdoms had to some extent to be pushed downward, and he must later redeem them. After the seventh round and a pralaya, he will go over to another planet. 7 rounds plus 7 globes, and added to each of the latter 7 root races, together make up 343 conditions of the earth. The entire earth evolution has the purpose of creating in man waking day consciousness, whereas the entire moon evolution had the purpose of developing in man picture consciousness. This was preceded by dreamless sleep consciousness on the sun. At that time, man was still a sleeping plant. A still earlier condition, that of deep trance, was present on Saturn, a condition which today still appears in certain pathological cases. Thus, the purpose of single planetary evolutions is to develop successive conditions of consciousness. Number 1, old Saturn equals deep trance consciousness. Number 2, old Sun equals dreamless sleep consciousness. Number 3, old Moon equals dreaming sleep or picture consciousness. Number 4, Earth equals waking consciousness or awareness of objects. Number 5, future Jupiter equals psychic or conscious picture consciousness. Number 6, future Venus equals super psychic or conscious life consciousness. And 7, future Vulcan equals spiritual or self-conscious universal consciousness. Just as human relationships now are governed by basic laws of nature, so will they later be judged on the basis of morality. They will be graded in accordance with stages of karma. 7 degrees of morality, ethical categories of mankind. The caste system was a precursor of this later moral structure. Categories of karma will be indicated in this way. The end of lecture 24. You are listening to RudolfSteinerAudio.com. As well, these podcasts can be heard at RudolfSteiner.podbean.com. Please consider becoming a patron. There are 2 publishing houses, SteinerBooks.org in America and RudolfSteinerPress.com in England, which are the sole publishers of Steiner into English and have given me permission to do these recordings. Please consider patronizing them as well. This is a reading of Collected Works, Volume 93A by Rudolf Steiner. The participants' notes from 31 lectures given in the early years, 1905 mostly, entitled Foundations of Esotericism, translated by Vera and Judith Compton Burnett. This is lecture 25, given in Berlin on the 27th of October, 1905. When we consider the successive planetary evolutions, we find that each one is a stage of a particular condition of evolution, which has 7 rounds, 7 times 7 globes, and 7 times 7 times 7 root races. The purpose of every such planetary evolution is to lead one condition of consciousness through all its stages. In the different esoteric religions, these stages are named in various ways. In Christian esotericism, a condition of consciousness is called power. A round is called kingdom, wisdom. A globe is called splendor, glory. When in Christian esotericism we speak of power, we mean, quote, going through a condition of consciousness, close quote. Going through a round is, quote, going through a kingdom, close quote. In the successive rounds, man experiences 7 kingdoms. First elementary kingdom, second elementary kingdom, third elementary kingdom, mineral kingdom,